Hi everybody, thank you for having here again. I hope you have a great week. It's probably not very best time right now, but I hope everybody is safe and sound and take care of your parents, your folks. Last week we talked about innovation in creative economy. I also had the opportunity to receive a follow-up questions from you guys. I replied them today by email. I hope the original requester received the answer. Not only yours, but I put on the same email body a full follow-up of questions, or at least most that I could answer or that I could filter out. If I could mention a couple ones that were very interesting, there was some related specifically to Brazil, how Brazil could be more focused on innovation or not leaning so much on imported technology, and also another question related how Brazil could be more competitive in comparison to other countries that we discussed. The ones related to Brazil are probably hard, but anyhow, I guess it's our work as society to push after those initiatives. The first one regarding imported technology, I would probably relate it to investing on research. As right now we are living a pandemic, we as the whole world could see as important as it is research. We just developed and deployed a vaccine in the time record for every single virus or variation that happened in our history. This one was solved in a timely record time frame. Not, of course, led by Brazil, but as world science and world research, I guess it's an important milestone. The second one related to competitiveness. Being an entrepreneur or managing a business in Brazil or owning a business in Brazil is also a challenge. We have a bunch of barriers and obstacles in terms of bureaucracy and additional costs in terms of taxes and other indirect costs. It's something to fight for and improve, regardless if we're talking about innovation or startup or not. In case of startup, my answer is even probably shorter. Most of the countries that succeed not only are much more simply in terms of bureaucracy and costs as a general business management for startup, they also have special programs to incentivize so small companies and small innovators can disrupt and bring new solutions for existing problems. One of the questions that for me was the most important ones were the ones related to how we as startups or young innovators can compete against large corporations. I believe that's the main point here. The main point is large corporations are based and fixed on the current business models, and normally they're too slow and too big to move and to change. Startups are the opposite of that. They don't have any ties with the current business model. They can simply propose new ones, be innovative, can be creative and aggressive in the best sense of the word. So they don't have to be conservative anyhow. So that's why startups can compete side by side with any large corporation. And as we mentioned and did that very simple example for the live color World Cup back at Mexico in 1970s. Currently we have the very same technology that large corporation has. So it's not a matter of access of technology or any other resources. It's probably a matter of creativity and trying to find out new solutions for existing problems. Talking about solutions, our next two talks today and next week, we are going to talking about exactly two innovative technologies that are very on the edge, on the fringe of the new resources that are available today. The first one that we're going to talk heavily today is cloud computing change the way that you currently access computational resources. We discussed it also last week about as we are moving from a product society in which we are used to acquire stuff, acquire assets, for instance, a car or a house or whatever assets we're talking about. For computers, used to be the same. And try not to think as an individual, as a natural person, as every one of us here are. Try to think a little bit as a company, as a business entity, right? So company used to, or still do at some level, acquire computer power to process its day-to-day operations, right? But most of the companies aren't about technology, aren't about IT. So if you are a bank, if you are a telecom company, if you are industry, your business is to produce whatever industry you are, I don't know, food, your business produces food. It's not about processing invoices, orders, and anything like that. So in the end, for most companies, IT is not, it's something that can be outsourced. It's not something that it could or should be investing on as a own asset. And now with cloud computing, we actually move on this path. Instead of acquiring computers as an asset, as a product, we using it as a service. You consume it as we want, either as an individual or mainly then talking here today as a company, right? Something very similar to like electricity. You don't buy a nuclear power plant or any kind of power plant that you put in place on your house, on your apartment building, or within a company. You simply rent electric consumption for the provider, for the utility provider, right? And you pay as much as you use. You don't have to invest, I don't know, 100,000 reais on the small power plant to supply your energy demand. So I'm going to use here Amazon as the main cloud provider as an example. I could mention that the three main cloud providers that are available today in the world: Amazon or AWS, Amazon Web Service. I'm going to talk about Google. Also, it's a main cloud provider today with this product line called GCP, Google Cloud Platform, and also Microsoft with their platform called Azure. Try to give an example either in Amazon, in Google. I want to use Microsoft, but regardless of each cloud provider that I'm using here, the whole idea is simply the same. On this presentation also, I'm including 3 demos. So the presentation itself, it's quite short. It's more of a debate or conversation that we are having here every week. And I try to be as practical as possible, even more practical than last week. I want to bring practical and real life examples. One of the questions that I had on the question and answers follow-up was, there was the acronym IRL. I had no idea what it was about. I had to look it up. So it's in real life. I guess it's very probably quite popular for young people like you guys. But anyhow, I'm trying to bring real life examples. The real life demos that I'm bringing here are going to be 3, and it's more or less under Faustão rules. So I have to make it happen in 30 seconds or less. If it somehow doesn't work, no worries at all. I can send a recorded version of it afterwards. But the risk of live demos. But I strongly believe that would work anyhow. So let me start showing my whole screen here. And as I mentioned, I'm going to use Amazon as an example, but probably the same scenario happens with Microsoft or mainly with Google also. But as a consumer, when you look it up for Amazon, you see there as a largest e-commerce portal in the world, or probably the second largest, because Alibaba is even larger than them. But anyhow, we as a consumer see something like this in which you can buy books, not DVDs as we have here, it's an old photo, but a bunch of other products, Garmin's, whatever product you like, Kindle, and so on, watches, whatever. That's what we as a consumer see. But on their background, on their back office, what they have is actually this. So in order to fulfill the orders that we as a consumer order on their e-commerce website, they have a huge logistical operation the world to be able to fulfill those orders, right? So it's a very complex operation. I'm assuming those green boxes too small for you guys to see. There is a whole pack here of green boxes. I don't know, let's say that's diapers or whatever. I don't believe they use post-its or little notes placing on those boxes with the address of the consumer to be delivered to. Everything here is very well controlled by information technology, a bunch of computer processing. I should have put in this presentation here, but next week I have a presentation in which some warehouse of Amazon, those order or those packs are driven or moved around by little robots. Those robots similar to those robots that clean your house, you know, that I forget their names, but those little rounded robots that go around the house cleaning it for. Amazon on some of their warehouse have one of those that move packs, large packs of like those around. It's quite interesting. I left it to the last presentation. But anyhow, my point is, Amazon behind the curtains are very big logistic operation. And their very big logistic operation only happens with a very solid and strict information technology flow that control everything that moves around here. So in the end, they had to create their own IT infrastructure in order to support their very complex business operation. That happens with the same with Google. So we as a consumer see Google as a simple little text box when you can query information that you want. Behind that very little simple query, there is a very complex IT infrastructure and operation to be able to match your query results with the almost infinite number of information that is available on the internet, and not only you, but billion users every single second. So Amazon and Google, and the same happened with Microsoft, they invented and created their own IT technology. So here we have a warehouse, Amazon warehouse or AWS warehouse, in which they placed the infrastructure. The infrastructure were developed very different from the standard technology that they were available 20 years ago. This kind of technology started to be developed by mid-2000, from 2005 and on. That was when was born the idea of cloud technology. So they started to provide IT processing power as a service, not as a device or as an asset. And not only this, they saw it as a new line of business. They found another company, a spin-off, a separate business unit, to sell it as a service for different consumers. So not only to supply their own demands in terms of infrastructure, IT infrastructure, they started to selling this as a service. So me, as an individual or as a company, instead of buying a whole server, a whole black server as it is here, I simply can rent a small piece of it on Amazon, and for me it's completely transparent. I don't know if this warehouse is in US or is in Brazil or in Argentina, doesn't matter. I simply can say, Amazon, I'd love to have a computer or a period of usage of the kind of computer, let's say a computer of, I don't know, 10 gigabytes of memory for 2 hours or for 20 days or whatever period. In Amazon, let me use it one of these computers, and I pay it as I use it. So the whole idea that was born here is the idea of classic computing. So instead of investing in technology as an asset, I can use as I want, similar to what I mentioned related to electricity. So I don't buy a power plant and put next to my house. I simply rent energy from the utility provider. And I pay according to my usage. If I use it for 1 hour or 20 days, is a different pricing data in comparison to if I use it for, I don't know, for a whole year. For companies, that's very interesting. That's the kind of usage or pattern usage that the company has. Let's say, for instance, this first graph here, and in the axis here, the vertical axis here, it's the computational power, as much as computer capacity is required to process, and the horizontal axis is the time. So this first frame here, it's probably related to a credit card company that have due dates of invoice every 5 days. So let's say here is the 50th day of the month. Here's the 10th day of the month. On the 15th, then not here. So every 5 days on the month, the credit card company have to issue a bunch of invoice to their credit card holders, to their customers, right? So on the 50th day of the month, the credit card company process, I don't know, 100,000, millions of invoices. And once that processing is finished, on the next 3-4 days, it doesn't have anything at all to process. It simply keep idle, or there is a waste of processing capacity. Few days after that, like on the 10th of the month, there is another bunch or another batch of invoice that should be processed here. Then the credit card company processes and then go to idle. From company perspective, he have to have a computer power at this level, at the maximum peak of the highest usage that we have, or that the company have, right? Company has all the it's always time that's the machine is idle. If you compare to a regular industry, it's like if you into, I don't know, cut wood during specific, and you are a furniture producer, it produces chairs, tables, or whatever. During specific days of the month, the machine is simply turned off. So the machine is over there, is there idle without produce any profit or any revenue to the company. So it's a waste of money. Even growing very fast, it's complicated, this scenario. Something related to even to startup. So if you're a small company, have only a limited amount of demand, no problem. You can start small and keep growing. If you're growing fast, your company should be prepared or should be structured with the IT capacity in order to cover your growth for the next, I don't know, 6 months. The problem is from the initial month up to the 60th month, there is a bunch of red area here, a bunch of waste. And not only that, when that limit of 6 months reaches and you keep growing, you have to do another investment. So you have to probably double your capacity, and the problems restarted. The cycle begins again. So you go over the next 6 months with a large bandwidth of idle capacity process. That's money that's being wasted here. There's different business, for instance, a company that sells concert tickets, right? So during the week, he doesn't sell much of tickets. And over the weekend, when there is concerts, there is something called concert that used to go like a year ago. Probably most of you guys don't remember. There was something 1 year ago called concerts. But anyhow, let's say that this is a concert selling ticket. During the week, he doesn't sell much of the tickets. On the weekend, there is peak of selling. And on specific weekends, there is huge shows, huge concerts like, I don't know, U2, Madonna, whatever large band there is a huge peak that isn't supported by the company. So what happens, and I don't know if you guys seen this, I've seen a lot. You try to buy your ticket, and the website that's selling tickets simply is out of service. So that's those green areas that service are not provided. And there is other scenarios, like company that by the end of the month have to process everything that was ordered or it was bought during the month. There is a standard or a pattern of consumption. Anyhow, each of those scenarios, the company should be investing in a capacity above its necessity. And every time he's not using its maximum capacity, it's a waste of money, it's a waste of investment. And the idea of last capacity is, on the first scenario, if I'm a credit card company and I'm using, for instance, Amazon or Google or Microsoft, they say, I simply don't have to have machines, equipment, and I simply ordered on the 50th day of the month to Amazon, say, Amazon, give me a machine of 100 gigabytes, whatever capacity is required. And Amazon rent that capacity for the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the next couple of days that is off, the consumers, the company release that capacity, give back to Amazon, and is not charged at all for the time that's not being used. A couple of days later, on the 10th, when the company has another batch of invoice to process, the cycle happens again. So it requests to AWS another machine for the next 2 days of whatever capacity, let's say, of 80 gigabytes. By the last day of this cycle, he asks for an upgrade of the machine, no problem. Say, Amazon, give me an extra 10 gigabytes of memory. And after that period, we simply return. And that happens. So it's possible to have this scenario of specific days of usage. It's possible to grow as long as your own demand grow. It's possible to provide and provision to specific peaks of demand. You simply, a couple of days before the U2 concert, you order through online to Amazon or to Google, whatever. Say, Google, please separate to me a larger machine for the next weekend or whatever. In different scenarios happens exactly the same. So to be more specific what I'm talking about here, let's use it a computer on the cloud. So what's in the end of what's cloud in the end? So cloud in the end, it's I'm simply rent a capacity, IT capacity over the internet through a provider. And as I mentioned, the main providers are Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. So and for me, it's completely transparent wherever this computer is. I simply say, Amazon, I'd like your computer with these configurations. Yeah. So here, if you probably noticed, but the computer that I'm using here to present to you guys, it's a Mac OS. And for instance, I simply don't have a Windows machine. And at this point, I don't have to go to a store, whatever store, I don't know, whatever store you prefer, Americanas or whatever store you prefer. I don't have to go there and buy a physical computer to use a Windows. I can simply rent one from Google, Amazon, whatever. So let me use one that I've been renting from Amazon, from AWS. I'm using application here that I use that will be possible to connect with this remote machine through my computer here. I'm going to access one of those computers. I don't know which one. I don't even know which warehouse I'm accessing to. To be honest, I don't care. I'm asking Amazon. So Amazon, I need to use a Windows computer. So please make it available one for me. I'm in a huge. I'm missing to use my Paint application. I don't know if you guys like to use Paint. But one of the things that Mac doesn't have is a Paint application. Paint application is great. You can draw your picture, paint here. It's only available on Windows. So as I don't own a Windows computer, a PC Windows computer. If I want to use a Windows, I simply rent from Amazon, and I'm using gladly here or happily my Paint here. I'm terrible with the drawing here. My daughter is much better than me on this. But anyhow, as soon as I finish it, I can simply turn it off my physical computer that you power off, or click here to power off, and Amazon would charge me for those couple minutes here. Once I shut it down my machine, if I keep shut it down for the next months, I won't be charged at all. That's the main point that I'm trying to show here. So that was our first little demo. The second one, I'm gonna show you a scenario that's very used, for instance, for this scenario, it's very used for you guys. If you wanna try, you simply have to create a Amazon AWS account, and once you access your AWS account, they are even providing those, especially if it's a small machine under 2 gigabytes of memory, they are providing it for a couple months for free for new accounts. So once you set up your AWS account, try to find about workspace, that the kind of service that I just used, and create a Linux or a Windows machine that they have over there available. Another example that I want to show here, it's one that's even simpler for you guys to try. It's the idea of using a programming notebook that's available on Google. So if you have any Google account, a regular Google account, if you have Google Drive, and then on Google Drive, you can simply here, as you create new slides, new docs, or new sheets, you can go here and create a new Google Collaboratory. If it's not available to you, look it up here, connect more apps, and look for Collab with a single L, C-O-L-A-B. You look it up and you hit install, and once installed, this option will be available here. And notebooks are very interesting, as you can write your information. It's been very used by academy, by industry, so you can write down your notation. So this is my first programming notebook. And I mean notebook, I mean an actual notebook that you write with pen and paper, right? But also this notebook, it's possible to create programming language. It's used to program, right? Oh, I did something that I should have shown to you guys. Let me show it again. So not only notation or text, I can also write code in programming language. If neither of you guys ever seen a programming language, I'm going to use a quite popular programming language that's being used today, which is Python. And the first program that every programmer do, it's Hello World. So I'm going to program here, very simple one, Hello World. And I'm going to hit play here, and the machine is going to present on my lower screen here the message Hello World. It's very simple. My main point is, once I hit play, it's saying here, connecting, allocating. So that is, right now, there is no machine associated to this notebook. And once I hit play, he creates from the cloud. So Google let me to use one of those black boxes here in warehouse. I don't no idea what it is. But anyhow, Google provide me a machine that's, it's 12 gigabytes of memory, which is a little better than the laptop that I'm using right now, with 100 gigabytes of hard disk, or persistent disk, right? And then I can put whatever programming that I want. I guess we have time. Let's do this. The kind of machine that's available for programming, it's very interesting. Nowadays, programming in data analysis or data science is being used very strongly to analysis. So one of the things that I talk to all my students, and normally I work with students that are not being graduated in technology or mathematics or whatever. Most of my students are becoming economists, business administrators, or international managers, or whatever professional they choose, or whatever course they're attending to. For all of them, I normally teach how to program or to use programming language or technology to analyze data. What I mean is, I don't expect any one of my students, once they become, for instance, Minister of Economy or whatever, in 20 years from now, they are discussing about assistance package as we're having right now for COVID. They simply don't guess numbers as they say, oh, the assistant package should be 100 reais or 200 reais. They shouldn't be guessing those numbers, should be analyzing and find out which are the necessary numbers to support the population that's possible to do under the budget constraints. But regardless, the way to do so and process a large amount of information is through programming language. And nowadays, it's very easy as we have almost free and as a service computer, as I just created, and even the programming language are quite simply, for instance, Python. Let's try to do a very small demonstration here. There is a famous website with a bunch of databases. We have data for, I don't know, Australia, restaurants, or telecom. Let's look it up for something, I don't know, something interesting as games. Streaming games. I guess this is something from what's the name of the gaming platform? I forgot it. Forget it. I guess it's Steam, right? Yeah, I guess it's Steam right here. Yeah. But anyhow, I'm gonna download its data. It's quite simple data. It's like a spreadsheet. I'm gonna open it. It's like an Excel spreadsheet. I'm gonna open as an Excel spreadsheet. So here it is. It's a bunch of information of games purchase and rentals. So there is a bunch of games. Probably you guys know about those games better than me. I stopped playing back at Atari days, but games like Fallout, I don't know any of those games. Tomb Raider or whatever, there is a bunch of information of time usage of rental and purchase numbers. Let's try to analyze and compare those. Let me close Excel here and go directly to our programming interface. And don't worry about the program itself. I just want to show an example how this kind of thing is used. So let me upload that database here to my computer on the cloud on Google. And then I'll be able, and again, don't worry about the writing, the syntax of programming. Here I'm importing a library that's be able to read Excel files called Pandas, is a famous one. And there's a games, PD, read, CSV, and the name of the file is this one, and I can show the top lines of that, the headlines of that spreadsheet. I guess it's still uploading. All right, I guess I have it. Not yet. Here it is. Oh, .csv. Here it is. There's a large number of data here. Let's see. It has about 200,000 records, so I can process it very easily and for a very performing manner. Do a very simple code here. Again, don't worry about the code. I'm trying to compare the time that there was a purchase of the game in comparison to the number of plays or the amount of minutes that happened. So I'm gonna do something like games. I want to group by purchase here. So it's a purchase or play or rental. purchase. I'd like to sum up those occurrences of this column 1.0 that has the quantity of minutes or the quantity of amount of games that were purchased. I guess that's it. And put that in a variable called totals. Let's show totals. There is a huge number here. I can even see that information. You already can see it. So the total amount of rentals is something around 3.5 almost million minutes in comparison to 120,000 purchase. I can see that as a graph. Here it is. Of course, the comparison is very disproportional. The amount of play or of rentals, it's almost 3.5 million minutes in comparison to 130,000 purchase. But again, it's not about the program itself, not even about the results. I just wanted to show how we can use, for instance, computer over cloud to program, and the main point in program is not to create a game, is not to create a website or an application, it's to analyze data. So once you guys start your own professional, I assume that become a profession that are data driven, right? That's my main point here. And even a smaller point or a bigger summary, I just show you guys a single rental of computer that I did. The first one, I rented Windows workstation, Windows machine over Amazon, over AWS, and then I rented Python programming computer, Google, in whatever place they gave me, I don't know. Lastly, and I guess I'm moving out of time, I could mention a couple of principles that are available in every cloud service. So it's on demand, as I mentioned. I buy or I pay as much as I use. So I request when I want to use. When I stop using it, they're free, and I only pay from what I actually use. It's access through network. There is always the concern of security. Every cloud provider focuses very on security. It's also possible to grow a lot. I'm using a machine of, I don't know, 10 gigabytes. I want 100, 200. Easy to scale up. It's also possible to do resource pool. The idea is to have economy of scale. So most of the service, as much as provide more of that service. So as much uses machines, Windows machine that as I just used, the cost per unit decrease. So they have example here, for instance, S3. It's a service for storing image and files, something equivalent to a Google Drive or OneDrive for Microsoft. There is a particular use that I'm going to show in my last demo about S3. But in the end, S3 for me, it's a repository similar to Google Drive in which you save your files, your documents, your photos, and their price, for instance, reduced by half in the last 5 years. So they use it to charge, I don't know, 50 cents of a dollar per month per gigabyte. I don't know what the pricing is, but that pricing, regardless of what it was, it reduced it by half, right? Why it happened? Because the economy of scale. So as much consumers or user Amazon, Microsoft, and Google has, they are able to reduce the cost per unit, and of course maintain a very nice margin to them. It's also very used to deploy new service. So we just deployed a machine that are able to program a Python program and analyze our data. So without knowing, I didn't install anything on the machine. I simply did create me a new notebook, create me a new collab, and I started programming my Python and loading my database and find out the result that I wanted. So I find out what should be the right amount of COVID package assistant package, right? So it's very easy to deploy and use. They also have the concept of even serverless. the level of transparency to the company or to the user, there is different level. They can provide me an infrastructure that I'm very aware of what kind of infrastructure that I have, and then I have to manage by myself. They can provide a whole platform, and those acronyms are exactly this: is infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and see the last part of the acronym every time they say as a service. I'm not buying a computer, I'm renting as a service. Platform as a service, it's when you rent a whole service like Gmail or Salesforce or any other tool that you use on the cloud internet. You don't have any idea about the infrastructure, you have any idea where the server are, you simply use it, right? In the last case, but I think I'm a credit card company. I send my whole data to be processed in invoice to Amazon or to Google, or whatever provider, and return the results. I have no idea about the infrastructure. I have no idea where those machines are. I simply use the service regarding of knowing about the server in itself. So it's called serverless. So for the company, it's very interesting as the IT departments, developers, and head management work closely together on day-to-day business, not IT problems or infrastructure problems. And just to have an idea, each cloud provider has its own infrastructure throughout the world. So those are the machines. In Google is very similar, Microsoft is very similar. That the kind of data center, so that building with black servers that you saw, each blue dot is a building, is a warehouse like this one throughout the world that Amazon has. So they have one here in São Paulo, another one in Argentina, a bunch of in East Coast of US, West Coast, a bunch of others in Europe, in South Asia, Australia. There is several throughout the world communicating directly with a very strong and powerful performance. It's not a connection that go through internet. Regular internet, if I'm here in São Paulo and want to access a server on New York, I go through a bunch of servers throughout the whole chain up to access that. Those Amazon server or Google server are connected through submarine cables or satellites. It connect directly one server to the other. Here an example, what kind of service they provide. They provide service like compute power, similar to what I use on a Windows machine, similar to what I use on a Python program machine. They also provide storage space in which I can save my information. For instance, S3 service in which I can save image, documents, and so on. I'm going to show the last demo related to that. They have networking service in order to the company can connect to the cloud services. They have databases, so large processing capacity with a lot of information about consumer, customers, orders, invoices, and so on, are not saved as an Excel sheet as I shown here. Is showing in a more structured way in a database. They have also products and services related to security and also products related to management, so the IT professional can manage this whole bunch of services. So they have, for instance, EC2, it's a main service in terms of computing power. The Windows machine that I use, it's an example of EC2 usage. S3, it's that bucket that I mentioned, similar to Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, where you can save your documents. I'm gonna show an example of it in a couple of minutes. And a bunch of databases that are famous free open source database like MySQL, or even paid database as Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, that's available on Amazon or Google or whatever provider you want. So we're going to use S3 as not only as a repository or a bucket as they call it. You can see even their symbol is we're going to use it as hosting service, providing as a website provider. Let's say if I want to host my website in whatever space or whatever server, whatever host on the internet, I can use, for instance, S3, because S3 not only can save files, they in front of the files are web hosting solution in which can conversate or can dialogue or can integrate with your browser, right? So if you have no idea how it's done on a website, if you go to any website that you want, I don't know, UOL or Terra that are famous on Brazil, let's try Terra. And every single website, if you have the curiosity to look it up, you can click the right button with your mouse and do this, view page source. In Portuguese is exibir código-fonte. So page source is the programming language that do the aggregation of this page here, showing, let's put those t-shirt here, let's put this photo here, let's put this title here. So this programming, it's called HTML. So there are tags that say, oh, this picture should go here, this title should go over there, and so on. So in the end, a website is simply a bunch of files of HTMLs and photos. It's basically this. And by chance, I have a website right here that I got, I landed from a friend of mine. He owns a bar, a pub. And I have this website. There is simply a bunch of files, HTMLs, and bunch of images, right? So this image here, for instance, Acoustic Friday, there is a guy playing guitar over there, right? If I open this HTML file on my browser, it works fine as a website. You see, I can navigate here perfectly. The only problem is that the file is local on my machine. So if you type this address or this path on your browser, won't work, because this path is pointing to local drive, folder Louise, folder desktop, folder HTML. It's not available on the internet. So let's put it available on the internet through a S3 service. Let's connect on AWS console. And if you guys wanted to create, for instance, account here, it's very, you have interface similar to this one. I already have my account. I simply gonna log in. And there is a bunch of services. The most used one by me is Workspace, as the one that I use for the Windows machine, and S3, which that I'm gonna use to save my HTML files and images, and also allow it to be visible through internet. So it will put a layer of a web hosting service. So let's create a bucket called whatever name, my website, Luiz Barbosa. I'm gonna place it in East US or whatever place I wanna place. By default, it comes with public access. I'm gonna unblock it so it can be available. And he's warning me about the risk, so I'm aware of the risk. I wanna move forward, and I guess that's it. So within my bucket, let me upload my files. So let me try. I guess it's uploaded already. Oh, no, not really. And then I'm gonna say that every file is available to the public, so it's available through the internet. I'm aware of the risk. Let's move forward. I guess that's it. It's uploading. I guess I have a couple questions here. All right, I guess it's finished. In my main file here is called index.html, index.html. In the URL, the public URL is this. Could be improved, but anyhow is this. So now this URL here, I don't know if it's too small for you guys to see, but now I have a URL called my website, luisbarbosa.s3.amazonaws.com/html/index.html. So now my pub website is published. It's available on the internet. So if you've never seen how to host or how to publish a website, that's it. Probably the hardest part is that have to diagram the page and have a user. But the site itself, the publishing of the site is simply it. So hosting service and say, hosting service, make it my website live. So guys, that was the last demo, and luckily all three of them worked quite fine. That was mainly that I want to show you to you, and I also want to leave another article talking about how cloud is supporting digital transformation. So cloud is not, again, it's not about technology. It's about changing the way the business and the companies use or consume technology today, right? And I still have 5 minutes for questions. I have limited access to the chat on the YouTube, but people here are relying the message to me. If you guys want to ask questions, we have extra minutes here. I can do it. And as last week, the question that I didn't answer here, please feel free to register them, because I'm going to receive it afterwards. And between today and next week, I definitely can reply to all. I'd love to answer questions. Let's see if I have any at this point. Guys, I don't know if I have any trouble to rely on the questions, but I didn't got any right now. But again, I recommend strongly the reading of the article. The last week's was a very nice one from Steve Blank, a main researcher about startups in innovation. Then I have an article here from McKinsey, which is a famous and important company in terms of consulting services, right? Exactly talking about how cloud is an important tool for the companies nowadays to do digital transformation. What is digital transformation? It's the way companies now can use digital channels to provide that service. During last week, for the whole or the most year of the pandemic, we could see most of the companies, even the smallest ones, somehow had to move to the internet or to a digital channel. Even a simpler one as, I don't know, WhatsApp. So a company that used to sell cakes on their shop, they somehow should be able to sell over internet, over WhatsApp or whatever you want. Perfect. All right, guys. I didn't receive any question at this point. I guess we can finish up a couple minutes earlier. Again, feel free to raise your question. I can follow up afterwards, and I hope to see you all next week. Next week, again, we're gonna close with a very disruptive technology, which is intelligence. I would say those two main ones that we've been talking are pillars for the creative economy and the innovation that we talked on our first conversation, right? It was, once again, it was a huge pleasure. I love to have you all here today. Hope you stay safe, stay sound, take care of your parents, your grandparents. Even we are in a very difficult moment right now, much closer to the end in comparison to the beginning. So very much, take care, and see you all next week. Thank you very much.